Okay, I'd like to start by introducing you to the Australian snubfin dolphin. This species was only formally described in 2005, which is relatively recent for a marine mammal. Prior to that, we thought that it was the Irrawaddy dolphin that we now know is only found through Asian waters. This is the Irrawaddy dolphin here, and you can see its distribution in blue and the snubfin dolphin's distribution in orange. So the snubfin dolphin is found through the Kimberley region of Western Australia, up through the Northern Territory and across into Queensland and southern New Guinea waters. Occasionally we see them in the Pilbara region and we think that they're vagrants. Being a completely separate species, we are very concerned about their conservation status. In 2017, the IUCN listed them on their red list as vulnerable to extinction. And this is based on an inferred decline in the population. So we think that there's less than 10,000 adults or mature individuals in the population. And we also think that they're declining due to numerous threats, including habitat loss, fisheries interactions, water pollution, and climate change is another big one. What do we know about the snubfin population in Roebuck Bay? Well, we know the population size is around 100 individuals, and this is based on work done by my colleagues Deborah Thiel and Alex Brown. And this work started in 2007 and went until 2014. And they estimate that there's between 100 to 150 individual snubfins in Roebuck Bay at any one time. And you can see this graph here that Alex produced for his PhD project. It shows you the cumulative sightings of snubfins at the top there, and humpback dolphins and bottlenose dolphins down the bottom. And we know these species to be less abundant in Roebuck Bay. More recently, in 2016, Roebuck Bay was actually declared a marine park. So DBCA, so that's the Department of Biodiversity Conservation and Attractions, is now in a joint management arrangement with the Yarroo. Some of the performance measures that we have for the park include maintaining diversity of marine mammals. So what does that mean? Well, really, we want to make sure that all the same species are there as in 2016. So that includes snubfin dolphins, bottlenose dolphins, humpback dolphins, and the occasional false killer whale, as well as humpback whales too. We also want to ensure that those populations don't decline. So we want to make sure that abundance is maintained. So in 2019, DBCA, in partnership with Nyambaburu Yarroo and the local community, including Broome Whale Watch and Absolute Ocean Charters, which are the two tour operators, embarked on a dolphin big day out. So this was actually a rapid census approach, which was quite different than what the researchers had done previously. So we did a theory session training the local volunteers to identify dolphins and be able to use the Dolphin Watch app. We then embarked on 3 days surveying the dolphins out on Yarroo Sea country. And this involved 3 DBCA boats, each with a team of 3, a Nyambaburu Yarroo person, a regional DBCA person, and a marine science program research scientist. And it was a tremendous effort. We actually achieved 604 kilometres of transects, and it took us 49 hours of searching. And it was completed over 3 days. We were really lucky. We had remarkable weather. It was right on the back of a cyclone, and we had very calm sea conditions, really perfect spotting conditions for snubfin dolphins. We spotted 116 dolphins, and this ended up being 96 individual snubfins, including 10 calves. And about 30% of those snubfins had been sighted in previous surveys. And you can see on this map here, that's our transect lines, those zigzag lines, and then most of our sightings were to the northeastern part of the bay. We've been working on another really big project, actually since 2013. It's taken us over 7 years to build a big picture across the Kimberley region, and this has been looking at snubfin distribution. What we're trying to do is actually assess their conservation status. Rather than looking at population size, we're looking at their distribution and how much of that area they occupy. And this was a project that was led by my colleague, Dr. Philippe Boucher. And my co-authors include Deborah Thiel, Sarah Marley, Kelly Waples, Frank Weisenberger, and all of the Aboriginal ranger groups across the Kimberley, including the Balangara, Bardijawi, Dumba Mangari, Nyambaburu Yarroo, Nyul Nyul, Ungu, and myself. And what we did was a regional assessment of the conservation status of snubfin dolphins. And what we found through all that survey data and also all the data from our Dolphin Watch volunteers and community sightings, we actually found that the area that they occupy is very small. So despite having a very wide distribution, so 10,000 kilometres, their area that they occupy is only 700 square kilometres. So it's a really small niche habitat. And we found that they actually prefer very shallow water, tends to be less than 20 metres in water depth, and being close to rivers and creeks, so within 15 kilometres. So that was a really big finding. It took us all putting our data together to build that big picture, and that was published in 2021 in Frontiers in Marine Science. It was a great finding. So what can you do to help the snubfin dolphins in Roebuck Bay? There's some key messages that we want to share with you. These include keeping the bay clean and tidy, disposing of your fishing line. Entanglements to dolphins, including snubfin dolphins, is one of the key threats. Also, going slow when you're around dolphins, particularly when they have calves. The calves can be really uncoordinated and they can't always actually avoid the vessels, particularly in shallow areas. And we all know that Roebuck Bay is really tidal, so you get the really shallow areas. And also keep your distance. So by all means, observe them, but just don't get too close. And please share your enthusiasm with your friends and family. We came up with a tool to help the community monitor snubfin dolphins in Roebuck Bay, and this is FinBook Roebuck Bay. So we made this publication in 2018, and it includes all the individual dorsal fins of the dolphins within Roebuck Bay, so almost 200 fins, and we're due to update this at the next census this year, actually in 2022. So each individual dolphin has a unique dorsal fin, and you can see here the notch at the base of the dorsal fin. So that's quite a well-marked dorsal fin. This one here also has a chopped or missing top of the dorsal fin. So they're very distinctive fins. And we use those nicks and notches and marks to track them over time and build up a catalogue. It's a little bit like a family photo album. And we give them ID codes scientifically, but then we also sometimes give them names as well. And the community's named a few, including Grunge, who's a local identity. Her code number is 025, but we've known her for about 12 years now. And she actually had a calf at the 2019 census. So how do they get these marks? Well, it differs between individuals. Sometimes it is those fisheries interactions. They can also get hit by boats. Sometimes it's interactions between themselves. They can be quite aggressive when they're socialising. And also shark interactions. So we've found that this population is really impacted by tiger sharks, and more so than the other species like humpback dolphins and bottlenose dolphins. And so that's quite a big finding for Roebuck Bay. It means that about between 80 to 90% of the population have marks that we can use, these natural marks, to identify them at all times. So it's really handy for researchers. Some dorsal fins are really stable over time in terms of the marking. So these ones are very subtly marked, and you can see over those time periods of several years to almost a decade, they've barely changed, which is really helpful to us. But sometimes they do change. These are some that have changed quite dramatically over time, and it's really important that we get out there often and survey and do the photo identification on the water so that we can keep track of individuals. Otherwise, we're inclined to give them a new ID code and name and not recognise them because their fin's been so severely modified. We're really lucky in Roebuck Bay. There's actually multiple dolphin species that you can see. Of course, the snubfin dolphin is by far the most common, but you can also see the Australian humpback dolphin. Similar to the snubfin dolphin, they are only found in northern Australian waters and up through New Guinea, so they're quite endemic to Australia. They have a really long rostrum, and they have a more triangular dorsal fin, and that actually goes a little bit white with age. It's like a little snowy cap to their fin, and we've actually found that the males have more white on their fin than the females, and that was a finding by Alex Brown during his PhD. So that helps us tell male and female humpback dolphins apart when we're in the field. And we also have bottlenose dolphins. We sometimes see the bottlenose dolphins and the snubfin dolphins in mixed species groups. It's really important when you're out on the water and you're trying to use the Marine Fauna Sightings app that you look at the faces of the dolphins to tell the species apart. So the snubfin dolphin has no rostrum, it has a blunt face, they have that creased neck that they can move about. The humpback dolphin, by far the most longest, slenderest rostrum, and then the bottlenose dolphin has kind of a stubby rostrum or beak. And also has a very falcate dorsal fin, has what we call like a regular dolphin dorsal fin. And the coloration differs as well between the species. So the snubfin dolphins tend to look a bit browner than the other species. Humpback dolphins have quite a big colour variation, but can be between brown and grey. And the bottlenose dolphins are like that slate grey colour all over. There's two more species that we'd love you to look out for in Roebuck Bay. One is the false killer whale. Now the name is quite misleading because it is actually a dolphin species, and from time to time they come into the bay. We think that their distribution might be more coastal than previously thought, so that we know that they're in Yarroo sea country and up through Dumba-Mangari sea country. And there's also the spinner dolphin too. Now this is the smallest dolphin that we encounter. They're only about 1.5 metres in length, very delicate, petite little species. And we're very interested in people logging their sightings of those species too. So yeah, it's really exciting in Roebuck Bay. You never know what species you're going to see. It's not like some of our southern study areas where you're inclined to only see the bottlenose dolphin. It's very exciting. Some of the dolphin behaviours that we would like dolphin watchers to record include socialising. Now this is by far the most exciting behavioural activity that we see. It's when the snubfin dolphins tend to form really large groups and they tend to be on top of one another. You sometimes see like a tummy, pink tummy, an inversion when they try and get their genitals out of the water, and lots of surface activity, lots of white water and tactile contact, and usually when mating, so the breeding is happening. So that's one behaviour. We also see this behaviour, which is spit feeding. Now this is peculiar to snubfin dolphins, and it's partly to do with their anatomy. So they can actually suck the water in, but then they can spit it out as well. And we think that the reason they do this is so that they scare the fish back towards their face, and they take the fish at that vulnerable time there. And it really varies what they feed on using this behaviour. We've seen them catch really big fish, things like salmon, and really small fish like little bait fish and trevally. And my colleagues there, Alex and Deb, have gotten really fantastic pictures of that. And some of our dolphin watchers have actually recorded great videos of this behaviour in Roebuck Bay. You also see other feeding behaviour, so them just chasing fish. We're very interested in feeding behaviour and also what we call foraging behaviour. So we're not really sure what they eat. Unfortunately, it can be quite hard to observe feeding behaviour because sometimes they do it below the water's surface. But there is some published data from snubfin dolphins that were unfortunately caught in nets in Queensland. So my colleagues looked at the stomach contents and found that they're really quite opportunistic. There's a wide variety of fish species that they feed on, and also cephalopods, so your squids and cuttlefish. And they find the beaks in the stomachs and also the little ear bones, the little otoliths as well. We've directly observed in Roebuck Bay them feeding on the blue threadfin salmon, including doing the spit feeding, the wolf herring, which are voracious looking, and the little fringe fin trevally. But we'd love more observations of what they're feeding on. The other behaviours that we're really interested in include resting behaviour. So this tends to be the snubfins will just lie at the water's surface, sometimes in a big group, sometimes individually. Sometimes they line up and they do what we call snagging, which is where they look like sausages on a barbecue. Or sometimes they'll do deep dives and they kind of go around in this circular motion before coming to the water surface again. And the last behaviour that we're interested in is travelling. So usually it's when they want to get from A to B. And they can form groups, and generally they move at a moderate pace when they're doing that. They're very directional, so they don't tend to change direction very often, but they can slowly travel too. And so there's the option to record that in the Marine Fauna Sightings app. So I hope that I've left you with some tools that will help you to monitor the snubfin dolphins next time you're on Yawuru Sea Country in Roebuck Bay. Thank you.